One of the things I really love about this fandom is making these personal connections with people and listening to people telling things about their own personal story, both of their life, how they came to the Wheel of Time, and how they perceive things that happen in the Wheel of Time, characters and their arcs. So I'm going to thread some things about my life through this. I'm Katrina, known as Koala Sedai, and I grew up on fantasy. I'm going to actually go right back to my earliest childhood memories of stories that I loved from the very beginnings, even before I could read myself. And they were things like Hans Christian Andersen. Personally, I remember two of my absolute favourites were The Ugly Duckling and Thumbelina. Now, when you all meet me at WhatCon, you'll know why Thumbelina, because I have always been one of the smallest people anywhere that I go, and there was something that really appealed to me about that story. Even today as an adult, I move around on my property and I can't see dragonflies flying about without feeling the magic of nature. And one of the things that I find wonderful thinking back about all of this now too is that we actually had a lot of these stories on vinyl records. And I hadn't even realized until I started preparing this that was the beginning of audiobooks for me, was listening to fairy tales on vinyl records. Grimm's fairy tales were the next thing. I remember vividly our really big books full of the Grimm's fairy tales, and I remember Mum reading fairy tales to us and just being enthralled and absolutely loving them. As soon as I could read for myself, I would absorb myself into every book that I could get a hold of. And I'm kind of showing my age a little bit by saying that my favourite television was The Wonderful World of Disney, but when I was watching it, it was in black and white. Of course, we would go to the movie theatres and see Disney movies in full colour, and I remember just falling into the worlds that could be created for me and absorbing myself into them. And right even from a small age, I often preferred to be in a fantasy world than in the real world, because I always felt a little bit different to most other people. Now, at this age, I didn't understand that some stories were truly real or perceived to be truly real by some people, while others were known to be purely fantasy. And it's a little bit funny because I was brought up in a very religious household, so I also had all of the fantasy of Bible stories. And at this kind of age of Grimm's fairy tales, Hans Christian Andersen, Wonderful World of Disney, where I would beg to stay home from church on a Sunday night for all kinds of reasons, but it was because I wanted to watch The Wonderful World of Disney rather than go to church. And at this age, I didn't even differentiate that to my parents. The stories in the Bible were the real stories, and all of the rest of the stuff was just fun. All of the rest of the stuff for me was just as real and had just as many life lessons in it, maybe more, than what I was being told out of the Bible stories. So that's just a little starter. The next one I'll talk about when I actually started to be able to make my own choices and earn pocket money and buy my own books, when I would have been around 8 or 9 years old.